Hello, Man in Gray here with another Man in Gray book review. Today's book is Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth, published in 2020 by Penguin Books. It's 96 pages long. This is part of the Penguin Books Great Ideas series. These are short paperback books by prominent writers of the past, each one focused on a particular great idea. In this case, two great ideas: the idea of the abolition of slavery and equal rights for black people and women. Sojourner Truth was a woman who was born into slavery in upstate New York sometime around 1797. She grew up in a Dutch immigrant. Her owners were Dutch immigrants, and she grew up speaking Dutch as her first language. She didn't learn English until she was sold as a young girl, and she always spoke English with a Dutch accent. In some of these speeches that are printed here, she was portrayed as speaking with a Southern accent, which is inaccurate because she was never in the South. Sojourner Truth was sold multiple times. Eventually, she wound up being owned by a man named John Dumont, who lived about an hour and a half, what would now be about an hour and a half drive north of New York. He raped her repeatedly and fathered a daughter on her. In 1826, the New York State government passed a law that by 1826 slavery would be outlawed. And Dumont promised Sojourner Truth that he would free her a year early if she behaved herself and did anything he wanted to, and he continued to sleep with her. And then he changed his mind and refused to free her. So she took her infant daughter and fled and ran away and hid until the slavery law came into effect and she became free. Afterwards, she learned that Dumont had sold her teenage son into slavery in Alabama, which under New York law was illegal. So she went to court and actually sued Dumont. And the new slave owners in Alabama to get her son back and won the case. And he was returned to her as the first time a black woman successfully sued a white man in the United States history. Now, during the Civil War, Sojourner Truth went around and tried to recruit black freedmen to fight for the Union cause in the Civil War. After the Civil War ended and slavery was ended, she advocated for land for freed slaves. Now, they were initially promised 40 acres and a mule, but then the law was actually passed that would do that, but then President Andrew Johnson vetoed it, and they never got their land. And so Sojourner Truth advocated for that. And she also found a second cause in advocating for equal rights for black people, and particularly for women. She was a suffragette, advocating that women needed to have the right to vote, particularly black women. And she went around and gave multiple speeches and also sang. She sang spirituals and to great acclaim wherever she performed. She died in 1883. Now, Sojourner Truth never learned how to read and write, so all of her speeches were extemporaneous, and the accounts we have of them were either transcribed or paraphrased by white audience members who heard her speak. And so the accuracy of her speeches is in question. There's some where we have multiple accounts of the same speech, and they differ quite a bit. This book contains a number of her speeches that were transcribed during this time period, mostly from the 1860s and 70s. In addition to Sojourner Truth, there's also some speeches and essays in here by other 19th century black women, most of whom were freed women, and all of whom had more education than Sojourner Truth did, because Sojourner Truth didn't have any education at all. The most remarkable of the other women in here is Anna Julia Cooper, who was born into slavery, I think in 1858, and who died in 1965. She lived to be over 100 years old, I think 105 years old. Cooper actually went to Paris and earned a PhD from the Sorbonne, one of the very first black women to earn a PhD in the whole history of the United States. And she became, Anna Julia Cooper became one of the outstanding early black feminists and educators. And one of her speeches, one of her essays is in here too. These other essays by other women are much more better written, we would say. They're much more sophisticated in their writing and thought, but they really lack the power and the immediacy of Sojourner Truth's simple speeches. There's something about Sojourner Truth, and the people that witnessed her remarked about how powerful her speaking voice was and how she was able to immediately get attention with her dignity and the strength of her arguments. I'd like to read one of these little speeches to you right now to give you a kind of flavor of what it was like. And they're all fairly short, so they're quite easy to read in a short amount of time. This one is entitled, "Does Not God Love Colored Children as Well as White Children?" This was a speech she gave at a Sunday school convention in Battle Creek, Michigan in 1863. So this was during the Civil War. After several speakers had spoken, a clear, distinct voice came from the head of the stairs saying, "Is there an opportunity now that I might say a few words?" The moderator seemed for a moment as if hesitating to grant the opportunity, as perhaps he did not know the speaker. Seeing the dilemma of the moderator and speaker, the Reverend T.W. Jones rose, addressing the moderator, and said that the speaker was Sojourner Truth. That was enough. 500 persons were instantly on their feet, prepared to give the most earnest and respectful attention to her who was once but a slave. Had Henry Ward Beecher or any other successful, renowned man's name been mentioned, it is doubtful whether it would have produced the electrical effect on the audience that her name did. She said that the Spirit of the Lord had told her to avail herself of the opportunity of speaking to so many children assembled together of the great sin of prejudice against color. "Children," she said, "who made your skin white? Was it not God? Who made mine black? Was it not the same God? Am I to blame, therefore, because my skin is black? Does it not cast a reproach on our Maker to despise a part of his children because he has been pleased to give them black skin? Indeed, children, it does, and your teachers ought to tell you so and root up, if possible, the great sin of prejudice against color from your minds. While Sabbath school teachers know of this great sin, and not only do not teach their pupils that it is a sin, but too often indulge in it themselves, can they expect God to bless them or their children? Does God not love colored children as well as white children? And does not the same Savior die to save one as the other? If so, white children must know that if they go to heaven, they must go there without their prejudice against color, for in heaven black and white are one in the love of Jesus. Now, children, remember what Sojourner Truth has told you, and thus get rid of your prejudice and learn to love colored children, that you may all be children of your Father who is in heaven. This short speech from Sojourner was perhaps the most telling anti-slavery speech that was ever delivered at Battle Creek or in Michigan. Scores of eyes were filled with tears, and it seems as if every individual present sanctioned all she said. And how could anyone help it? For surely, if there were any present whose heart had failed to beat in sympathy with her remarks, they must be a good distance from the kingdom of heaven, whatever their profession may be. So that gives you an idea of kind of the flavor of Sojourner Truth's simple and very direct speeches, several of which are included in this book. The book is Ain't I a Woman? The author, Sojourner Truth. This has been another Man in Gray book review. Thanks for watching.